Greiner Talks, about sustainability and transformation. A Greiner podcast episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Greiner Talks on sustainability and transformation. I am Alexander Bert. Our topic today is all about changing the ways we do business. And my guest today, Katja Seidenschnur from Nestlé.
Hello, Alexander. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us, and hi from Austria to Switzerland.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, COVID is keeping us apart, but we found different ways of recording this interview today. Thanks to you and your colleagues for making this happen.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to this.
Katja, let me briefly introduce you. You are the Sustainability Director for Europe, Middle East and North Africa at the world's largest food and beverage company, Nestlé. So obviously, sustainability plays a big role in your life and it's a huge topic on your agenda. But before diving into the business context, I would like to get to know you a little bit. What is sustainability for you personally?
So sustainability is a very broad topic and it means a lot of things. So for me personally, what I think about is, first of all, the future of our planet. I'm thinking about my children. I am thinking about as well the opportunity for a business. And more specifically, I think when we look at sustainability, or when I look at sustainability, it's about behaving and acting in a way that makes sense for the long term. So not just thinking about costs and profit when I think about the business, but as well thinking about the impact that we have on people, that we have on society, and that we have on the planet.
In our last episode, sustainability expert Fred Lux, he mentioned that sustainability implies a shared responsibility. So for you as Nestlé, you're obviously a large company that comes with a large responsibility. So what are you doing to become a more sustainable company?
Yes, Nestlé is very big. We're the biggest food and beverage company. And this is where we have a role to play. So it's a huge responsibility, but as well, it is a huge opportunity that we can impact a lot. So we have done quite a lot of things in the past. We talked about creating shared value. So this is deeply ingrained also in our culture, but we all need to step up. And we as Nestlé, we are very determined to step up big time. We have made very strong commitments and bold commitments. The last one being our climate pledge to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. And this means that we are pledging to become carbon neutral along the whole value chain, including agricultural suppliers by 2050. And this is quite a big statement, considering that the suppliers, for example, agriculture and ingredients, are accounting for more than 50% of the value chain. And as well, packaging is actually a key part where we need to work together with our partners to tackle this problem. And we have made other commitments, so there's quite a few. The one that will interest you most is the one on packaging. So we have committed, and our vision is that no waste and no packaging waste will end up in the environment. And this is also linked to our pledge that we have committed to have 100% recyclable or reusable packaging by 2025.
Now, thinking of activists, thinking of NGOs, thinking of critical consumers, thinking of social media. Obviously, you as Nestlé, as a huge food and beverage producing company, you don't have an easy stand. What do you reply to your critics who are saying you're not doing enough, you're destroying our planet? What's your response?
So I think there's two aspects for it. To be proactive and transparent on things that we are doing already and to share the great progress that we have made. But then on the other side as well, as mentioned, it is not enough. And also, despite having done a lot of things, this is not enough. Everyone needs to step up. So I think it's there working together and to find in what area do we have the biggest urgency and where do we have the right to lead and where can we create a bigger impact. So this is what is happening. And this is where I think we just need to collaborate. And it's not about finger pointing or being defensive. It's really embracing the desire to transform the food system and to play an active and leading part in that. And also to asking, what else can we do more? What else is needed? How can we change the system? And I think this is the right way to look at it.
And what initiative or what project are you currently most excited about? What are you working on?
So at the moment, I am working very much on two areas, which is climate. So we have done the climate pledge last year, and we are working intensively on our climate roadmap to say how can we make these things happen. Because the commitment was there before we had a plan. So now we need to have a specific plan. And although the 2030 milestone of reducing carbon by minus 50% sounds far away, actually it's not that far away. So this is one topic. And then as well, packaging is one of the key areas where we're looking at. Other areas are also very important. And just coming back to the sustainability strategy, I didn't mention them, but there's a lot more. So there's human rights. There's the also nutritional value that is deeply ingrained in our normal strategy to make sure we have good nutritional profile of products. In terms of the planetary impact, we are also looking at water, caring for water and making sure that we are preserving the environment to provide water for future generations, biodiversity. So there's quite a few topics on sustainability generally. But I would say climate and packaging, those are the ones that are top of mind. And on climate, once we tackle the climate issues, as well as it's all linked, we will tackle quite a lot of other issues like biodiversity, like water, like human rights and social elements. We will tackle that as well.
And sustainable businesses obviously need sustainable suppliers. That's how Greiner and Nestlé are collaborating since many years. My question to you, what makes a good supplier in the year 2020? How have Nestlé's demands on suppliers changed over the last decade?
Yes, I think first we need to think not in terms of suppliers, but we need to think in terms of partners. To tackle the challenges that we have, we need to work closely together because it's all linked. It's the science that is linking with the suppliers or the material providers, and it's linked to us. It needs to link to our machines, our manufacturing, and as well it's linked to the infrastructure, for example. So one of the demands is to be a real partner and to collaborate. That would be one point. The second point is to provide transparency. I think probably with Greiner we have some good transparency, but generally when we think about the hundred thousands of suppliers that we have along our whole value chain, it is not always transparent. And while we are increasing the demand on ourselves, we will also increase the demands to our partners in terms of showing us where are things coming from, how are things being produced. Are you using renewable electricity, for example? What's your carbon footprint? Are you being socially equal, and is that in place? So I think transparency is the second point next to the partnership.
And being transparent also requires to actually know yourself what is your impact, which is not an easy question. We're working hard at Greiner to understand the impact of our products, but thinking about the consumers, it is even more difficult for them to judge, is this product sustainable or not? Could you just briefly tell me, what are you doing to improve that kind of transparency for consumers? When will they be able to read the CO2 footprint of a certain product on the packaging, for example?
So this is a very interesting and important area. So the transparency to the consumer, I'm sure also is going to evolve. And we are part of that discussion and that thinking process. So I think there will be some consumer pull. I think there will be some more information from some companies. You have Eternity, you have the Yuka app in France. So there will be some services that will bring more transparency. And then clearly also the demand from the consumer is that we will share more transparently on where products are coming from, how they are being produced. So in terms of labeling, we are considering how to best communicate the sustainability aspects onto our packaging. How can we create stories for the consumer? How can we link it to the brands? How can we link it to the different angles of sustainability? And I think based on the work of different manufacturers, based on the pull from consumers, and as well based on the EU Green Deal ambition, I think there will be a lot of movement in terms of labeling on our packaging. And I think on this point, what is key is that we will have some kind of harmonized or standardized way to avoid any greenwashing and as well to make it simple for the consumer, because sustainability is all interlinked and it's not so easy. So we need to make sure that we don't have a huge catalog on our packaging, but that we make it simple. And again, I think this is where the brands come into place. Once we have brands identified for what kind of contribution they provide for the society and for the planet, next to the individual, rational and emotional benefits, I think this will as well help to have that clarity and consumer education on the packaging.
So my wish as a consumer, for example, would be that in 2 years, I could see clearly when looking at a packaging of a product, the climate impact of that product, let's say labeled in red, orange, or green. Do you think that's just a wish that will not come true, or is that something that could happen soon?
Personally, I believe this is going to happen. So we have already seen kind of mushrooming some different climate certificates on the market, not maybe necessarily visible to the consumer, but there are various climate certificates. And I'm sure that this is going to come with the demand of the consumer for more transparency. With the European Green Deal, I'm sure this is going to be put on the pack.
And speaking of consumers in general, what kind of changes do you see in consumers' expectations? There has been a lot going on over the last, let's say, 5 years. The climate movement has started to take up speed. Sustainability is on top of the agenda, is on top of newspapers. What's your impression? What has changed in terms of customers' expectations?
Yes, so I think the consumer is going to demand more. There's various areas. I think we see that there's a move, obviously, towards more digital technologies. And this will provide more transparency, I believe, for the consumer as well, not just to the consumer in terms of going back to the manufacturer, but maybe even going back all the way to the value chain of where the raw ingredients are coming from. So we see this digital movement. Of course, the consumer is getting more health conscious, and this is a good thing, and we're fully supporting that, and we're very happy about that. As well, the consumer sees his role not only anymore as an individual, but as well sees his contribution to his community, to the society, and as well that his choice has an impact on the planet. So I think this responsibility of the consumer, this is just going to be transferred to us. And this is why sustainability and being ahead of the consumer and leading the consumer in doing the right thing, and maybe as well clarifying some misperceptions on some of the areas, I think this is really key, and this is our responsibility.
So pressure is coming from lots of different sides for you, as for us as well. You have regulators, you have consumers, you have suppliers, and so on. Where do you see the most pressure coming from? Who is putting most pressure on you?
So next to my kids, which put some personal pressure on me, I would say the biggest pressure and maybe the biggest change where we can see that internally we're making a huge step forward is the commitment of our CEO, Mark Schneider. He is very much behind the sustainability, and he does see the urgency and as well the responsibility. And this is creating a big drive. And of course, we see, consumer research, we have customers asking, we have regulators asking, that's all coming on top. But I would say having made very bold commitments and saying this is the right thing to do, and we're not going to argue anymore if or if not, this is what we're going to do. So that it's more up to us on defining the plan, what we're going to do, and how we're going to operationalize it. So I think this has been the really good motivating thing as well.
One problem of big corporations might be that it is very hard to give them a face to understand who they are. It's this big corporation that you can't really grasp. So that was one of the things why I'm really excited about speaking to you and having the chance of talking to you about sustainability. And in that context, let's be honest, we face a plastics crisis. If you see pictures of plastics in the ocean, if you see littering in natural environments, but what must be changed to prevent plastics to end up in the oceans? And what can companies like Nestlé or Greiner do about this?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think it's very visible, the plastic crisis, and we need to solve that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge that plastic does have a lot of benefits in terms of material characteristic to provide safety and hygiene and preservation of food, but it is not circular yet. So our vision at Nestlé is that we do not want that any of the packaging ends up anywhere in the environment. This is what we feel responsible for. So it's actually looking at the whole cycle and also looking at the end of life. And this is why in our packaging strategy, we are talking about 3 pillars, how to tackle this plastic crisis. The first pillar is about designing the right packaging. The second one is about infrastructure. And the third one is about consumer education. So let me just go with you through these 3 pillars. So on the first pillar on packaging design, we are looking at how can we make the packaging best designed for recycling. So this is looking at, for example, switching from some multi-material to monomaterials. This is one key pillar, and we are going to have a lot of changes there, and all the teams are working on making that transition. The second one is the infrastructure. So we need to have the infrastructure to collect it, because even if everything would be designed for recycling, if there is no infrastructure, you again don't have the circularity. So we do take responsibility in this area as well. And what we are doing is that we are supporting companies to create the infrastructure. So for example, we have a project in Egypt where we are supporting the building of infrastructure. And as well in Egypt, we have committed that we collect and take back as much plastic as we have put on the market. And this is a very high standard and a very tough commitment, but we are doing it. In other markets, we are supporting EPR schemes. We are very much in favor of the EPR schemes, and we are trying to prove in some markets the business case to set up an EPR scheme. And the third point is the consumer education. So we're trying to help the consumer to make a better choice, informing him and helping him in various ways so that he's picking recycled material and as well that he can facilitate the sorting and recycling afterwards. And for this, we definitely need to communicate more about it. We're doing something internally with employees, but as well, we are putting more and more information on the pack or also outside of the pack in various media. And this is especially important, I think, in emerging markets, where we have the biggest problem that the majority of the packaging ends up in rivers and oceans. And to your second question, what can companies like Greiner contribute? So I think, once again, it's a partnership on all of these 3 areas. So it would be great if Greiner can contribute through science, through better material, to create something that is cost competitive, and as well to invest in a way. We're investing a lot of money. So as well, if the partners can invest and contribute in the materials and the science and the collaboration and the partnerships on one side, but as well, I think we could think about how we can as well join up and partner as well in supporting the infrastructure. And if we have joint efforts, it will be more powerful.
Actually, one of the goals of Greiner is to become a fully circular business by 2030. And obviously, there is lots of challenges ahead to reach that goal. One issue or one key area that is important in that context is the product's end of life. I'm wondering, do you also consider alternative business models for the return of packaging, such as leasing of packaging, for example?
So yes, we are also exploring alternative delivery systems. And there's different options. So we are looking at, on one side, refill systems. And you might have heard about the loop system, where we have a container that is being refilled. That's one area. We also have refill pilots working together with e-commerce players. And as well, we have some packaging-free options, like the MIVA system, where we talk about bulk, where there is some kind of dispenser installed at the retailer store, and we are collaborating with them to provide bulk to these solutions. So we are testing in various markets, both in Europe, but as well in Americas and in Asia, Oceania. So we have various pilots, and once these pilots prove to be successful, we will be rolling that out. But so far, the consumer response has been very positive, and it would also be a great way in terms of consumer and brand building. So again, I think this is a fantastic opportunity.
And coming back once again to you as a person in that role as a sustainability director in Europe and the MENA region, what's your biggest wish? What is inspiring you? What do you really want to change? Is there some key topic that's on your mind, maybe for personal reasons?
As I'm really passionate about it, I see the urgency, and I have 2 kids. So that's a huge motivation for me on one side. And the other motivation is I really want to embed it in the business. And I think if we want to change things, sustainability needs to be embedded in the business and the brands. So I also see a huge business opportunity. And I think the urgency everybody knows, and you have the pictures in your mind. So I don't think we need to create more of that. But I would really feel proud if Nestlé could lead this transformation of the food system. If we can crack it, I think would be great. In the end, we are humans. We are supposed to be the most intelligent species on Earth. But I think when you look at the system now, and it's not all visible. And now with this position, I see a lot of things that are visible that are not probably visible to the public. But once you see what we are doing, I really want us as human species to be a bit smarter than what we're doing. So that's maybe the other angle and the other way of looking at it. So I really hope we can crack it. And with more education and with the momentum, I think it's super exciting. You really see, especially on climate, you see the race to zero. You see a huge momentum at Nestlé, but outside as well. And a lot of companies that are going out and that are making very strong commitments. And I think this all puts us together in one boat. And I think we know that we can only make it together. But I'm very, very much charged and energized by the whole movement. And I wish that, in a few years, we can see some fruits and we can see a turning point.
So that's a very hopeful note to end on. Thank you so much for your time and for your answers, Katja.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.
Last but not least, I would like to ask you for a short and spontaneous word rap. I would shoot one word at you and you'll answer with the first thing that comes to your mind, if that's fine for you.
Yes, perfect.
What do you associate with rainforest?
Source of life.
Wildfires?
Heat.
Consumption?
Overconsumption.
Human rights?
Equality.
Safe access to drinking water?
Human right.
Plastics?
Reusable.
Transformation?
Huge opportunity.
And one message to the world.
Make it happen fast.
Thank you so much for taking your time, Katja.
Thank you, Alexander.
Greiner Talks, a Greiner podcast. Subscribe now.